in the 9:30 service today. Like, last time I did announcements, we did not have this many people. Y'all got me feeling a little nervous, okay? So great to see you. You couldn't have picked a better Sunday to be here. Got that one in, John. If this is your first time with us this morning, I'm so happy to see you. I hope for you this morning that you feel welcome and that you experience God in a new way and his love for you. And I really hope that for all of us, that we get to experience God in a new way today. We have got a lot of things going on at Rivers United Church. We are wrapping up summertime, about to start a new school year, so our calendar of events is getting packed, and we have got some great things going on, and I want you to be in the loop. And the best way to be in the loop for that is to sign up for the Digital Weekly. You can do that on our website. There's a link there to sign up for it. You can also use the connection card that's in the seat back in front of you to drop in a connection box, and we will definitely get you signed up for that. That way, on Saturdays, you get an email that tells you everything that's going on at the church, what to look forward to. Speaking of these connection cards, there's lots of options on there that you can check off if you have questions about the church. If you're interested in baptism or getting connected to a small group or something like that, that's the way to do it. You can also write in a question. I am the one who normally gets those connection cards, and I would love to communicate with you this week. Those also go in the connection boxes at our doors. And segueing also using these connection boxes, if you came predetermined to give today, that's where that goes. We don't pass a plate on Sunday mornings here because we don't want people to feel pressured or weird about giving. And so just if you decided to give already, that's where that goes. Okay, now coming back to these events. Those of you who know when I get up here to do announcements, it's because I want to really highlight something that's important to me and should be important to the church. Normally it has to do with women and Bible studies, but today it has to do with kids. I'm so excited. For the first time in Rivers United history, we are putting on a VBS. Okay, this is really exciting. So we have a video to highlight that real quick. Okay, this day-long VBS, okay, we're doing one whole day, Saturday the 19th, next month. We are putting on the best day ever for the kids in our community. So this is for if you have kids, if you have grandkids, if you know kids, get them signed up for this. It is going to be so awesome. This is such a great way to invest in the spiritual lives of the kids in this church. What we want to do, it's not just investing in the here and now, but this is the kids are the future of not just our church, but the church. And VBS is such a great way to impact them in that area. And so get them signed up, but also, if you look in your weekly, and if you look anywhere else that talks about best day ever, you'll see that there is a sign up, a link for you to sign up too. Now, we already have most of our teacher positions filled for this. So if you're already like checked out because you're like, I don't do kids, well, guess what? You don't have to do kids to help, okay? We should all be invested in the future of our church. So kids should be important. And so if you are available on August 19th, Katie Creason, our family life director, she has been doing an amazing job setting the foundation for this day. And now she needs your help. We need your help. I've been helping her some with this. It is going to be amazing, but we need people to help with lunch. We have snacks that we need prepared. We need setup and takedown and logistical things that are behind the scenes. So even if working with kids isn't your thing, you can still invest in this day and see lives changed by being a part of those logistics, okay? So I really wanted to highlight that. Make sure that you all feel good about it and that you go today and sign up to help, okay? Katie's on vacation right now, so like how amazing would it be if she came back and oh my gosh, there's 50 new people who want to help with VBS, right? But I will say there is something to be said for when people who are outside of Rivers United come to VBS and they see like, oh my gosh, this church family really loves their kids, you know, and they see all hands on deck and we need it, y'all. So if you're available, please sign up for that. All right, also, if you need prayer today, we are here for it. There's a prayer station over here after the service. So if something is weighing on your heart or you need to lift something up, we're ready for it, and we want to pray with you. We'd be honored to pray with you. All right, now we've got part one of a two-part series that John is preaching on, and he's going to go ahead and come on up and give our first sermon in the series, Summer Baggage. All right.
Good job, Sally. That was really, really great. So Vacation Bible School is really, really exciting stuff. So one other announcement that I wanted to make to you guys is we made an investment a few years ago and then again this year into a Hope Center that is in Suffolk. And it's for ladies, it's for rehabilitation from people that are struggling with addiction. And it's a year-long discipleship program / rehab kind of deal right in Suffolk, and they are opening their doors starting tomorrow. And so we just want to make sure you guys knew about that. So if you guys want to know more about that or some other ways to get involved, because they do still need some stuff there, Sherry, could you just raise your hand? Come see Sherry after the service, because we don't have the details on it right now, but she can get you in the loop on that. Some of you guys are already in that. And so it is right in Suffolk, and there are some opportunities to be able to still help with that. And so I can't think of anybody that needs help more, but we're so excited to have that right here in our area. So I'm glad to be back with you guys today. I took three Sundays off. I was here for 2 of them, and I was gone for 1 of them. Me and Marie got a few days away. And we've been working on a few things, but I didn't preach for 3 Sundays in a row, which was pretty amazing for you guys and for me. And so I'm raring to go now. But I wanted to take just a moment to thank Pastor Dave Clefman and John Baston for doing an incredible At the Movie series. And not only was it fun, but very life-impacting. And then last week we had Wilson and Lori Canterberg with us, our missionaries. And so if you missed that, you can go back and listen to that as well. But today, we're going to start a brand new 2-part series talking about baggage in our life. As I thought about that for coming off of vacation, one of the things is that when you get ready to go, you have to pack a bag, right? And it's important that you don't overpack. Is that right, Marie? Or I'm just playing. Actually, we didn't go very far, so we didn't have to travel by plane this time. So it wasn't as important this time, although she did pack our little car to the hill for all the stuff. Anyway. Not sure, 3 days away, and anyway, a lot of stuff. Sorry, we'll leave that one alone. But you know when it is important what you pack? Anybody flown recently? And depending on who you fly with, like we flew Southwest this last time when we had a family funeral, and we went, and it wasn't quite as bad because Southwest doesn't charge you for 1 bag, but they do weigh them, right? And if it's overweight, you either get charged more or possibly they don't even take them sometimes, you know, so it's really, really crazy with the baggage. Let me ask you about your life. Do you have more stuff than what you need? And what we want to talk about in this series is some things I believe that are weighing us down. And we're going to talk about one next week that is weighing us down, and it's something that we like and it's very hard to get rid of, but yet it's not bringing the results that we want in our life. We want to get rid of it, but it's really hard. But today we're going to talk about one that is a little bit more subtle than that. That it may be in your life and you don't even know it. It may be directing your life and you don't even know it. We're going to talk about the influences in our lives. In particular, some that are directing us in a bad way, but sometimes we don't pay attention. So let me ask you a question. What influences your life? What influences are there? Maybe you don't spend a lot of time thinking about that, but maybe we need to, because they actually set the direction for us, right? The things that influence us. It's amazing how sometimes we don't even pay attention to it. One might be your phone, right? Anybody? Does your phone influence you? I know even when you're on vacation, you ever have a phantom ring? You know what I'm talking about by that? It's when you check your phone because you thought it rang and it didn't. It's almost like being amputated. Or have you ever left your phone somewhere and then realized, hey, you're still trying to check it even though it's not there, and you're having anxiety because you don't know where your phone is? It influences us more than we think, doesn't it? It was designed that way. Computers, TV, and I don't mean that all of it's bad, right? Church influences us sometimes. Facebook, and Facebook's not all bad. Some of you guys are watching on a live stream. That's pretty good, right? That we're able to do that. And so they're good and bad influences. Advertisement. I want to spend just a minute there, right? How much does advertisement influence us, right? That we didn't know we needed it until they told us we needed it, right? I was just thinking about when you were talking about traveling this past spring, we went to Minnesota for a family funeral, and then we got to spend some time with family, and it was a really, really good trip. We felt bad about losing my aunt, but she was older, and we got a good family reunion time. It was awesome. And my mom was there. But then flying back, I flew back with my mom and my stepfather and stuff. And so flying back, we had ate a lot with the family, and then we had a long time in the airport in Minnesota, and so we ate there. And then as we were getting off in Chicago, we said, you know what, we don't really need to eat this time. We're just going to go right to the gate. And as we're walking through the airport, my mom sees a sign that says Chicago Pizza, and she goes, oh, I think we should have that. And we had just said we weren't going to eat anything else. We're filled to the brim. But not only did she eat it, but I ate it, and Rolly ate it, and we all ate it. And so that's what you see the power of influence. I didn't know I needed it, right, until I did. It lures you in. It made me think about this, that if you want to catch a fish, a lot of times you use something like this. I've caught a few like that. Now, can I tell you something? That's never appealed to me. I would never bite that in a million years, right? But I had a good friend of mine that fishes a lot. He's not very good. He doesn't catch anything. I don't know what they call that, right? When you hold a pole and you don't catch anything, is that still fishing? It's like, if you're going hunting and you're carrying a gun but you never shoot anything, is that hunting or just like walking in the woods with a gun? Okay, anyway, you know who you are. But you got to think like a fish, right? It lures them. That's not what lures people. You know what lures people? I asked my wife to bake brownies today, so if you got any brownies, can we thank Marie for making brownies today? And you might not thank her afterwards, right? But she made brownies, and we'll talk about that. But if you wanted to lure a person, right? Some of you guys say, I'm not going to eat carbs, and then we do this at church to you. But even more, what do you put in the brownies, right? If you wanted to get somebody, you could put an ingredient in, they wouldn't even know. And I got to tell you, this would get me every time, right? At least I died happy or whatever. So we'll talk about the ingredients in a minute, okay? So there is a special ingredient in it, and we'll get to that. Okay, so now you're a little nervous, right? It's okay, just relax. It's church, right? We wouldn't do anything to you, right? You know, Satan has a way of luring us. Maybe you didn't know. Maybe you didn't believe in Satan. One of the greatest things for Satan is if people don't believe in him. He works the best in the secrets. He works the best luring people and understanding human behavior. But remember this, that Satan's goal is to steal, kill, and destroy. And the things he lures us with, the things that he has that influences us are so important that we recognize them, or it will lead to the way of death. Maybe you didn't even know it. It's like putting something in the brownies that maybe you didn't know, right? And so today what we want to do is this. We want to talk about 3 principles. Today is about principles, not a legalistic formula. That's not what we're talking about. Don't take it like, hey, we're talking about bad influences and this is just going to be beating me down. But it may be challenging. But it's about the principles, not a legalistic formula. It's not about making a list. That can actually be a bad thing, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. I want to tell you what the Proverbs writer said. The Proverbs writer in Proverbs 25. We're going to kind of skip around a little bit today because normally I cover one passage. But today, all through the Bible, it talks about this very thing. And so we want to highlight some of them, and you can go back and read these passages for yourself. But the Proverbs writer wrote this, Proverbs 25 and verse 26. He said, like a muddied spring or a polluted well are the righteous who give way to the wicked, like a muddied spring. You know where these work the best? When the water's a little bit muddy and you can't quite tell what it is, right? And you bite down on it anyway, and it kind of shines, right? You get it. Okay, so I want to give you 3 principles today. 3 principles. Now, I'm going to read the verse first and then the principle because the principles should always come out of the verses, not just something that I dreamed up or not just some kind of self-help. But I will say, I don't know if it was vacation mode for me or whatever, but I've got all the verses in the wrong spot. So the first verse is before it, and then if you look what's under point 1, that should go with point 2, and what's under point 2 goes with point 3. If you don't know, then you'll just read this later and you'll go, these points don't make sense. I think that one would go better with that one, and it does, okay? So anyway, you get the idea. I couldn't have made that more confusing if I tried. But this is the one for point 1, okay? 1 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 1. In verse 6. 1 Corinthians 5 and verse 6. Your boasting is not good. He's talking to a church that's really messed up. Don't you know that a little yeast leavens the whole batch of dough? A little yeast. Now, you'd have to be Jewish to understand the symbolism. In fact, back in April, we had a Seder meal here that we really explained it. It's kind of a Passover meal where the Jews celebrate. And one of the things about Passover is they ate unleavened bread. Now, the reason they did that was in the book of Exodus. In fact, we have a series right after this one about Moses where we're going to talk a little bit about that. But when they were in Egypt and they were getting ready to leave, God said to hurry up, and they didn't have time to put yeast in the bread, but it represented more than that. The unleavened bread, the yeast always represents sin. And so it was actually a symbol of Jesus being unleavened bread, meaning no sin in his life. But you know, a little bit of yeast goes a long ways. Did you know? If you got a gluten problem, you know that, right? But it causes it to rise, and it tastes good and everything. But when you think about that, a little bit of it goes a long ways. A little bit makes it rise. A little bit makes it, it's bigger than what we think. It starts off small, but it gets really big. And he goes on to say this, get rid of the old yeast so that you may be new unleavened batch as you really are. For Christ, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed. He's telling us how to get rid of it, that we need to get rid of the yeast in our life because a little bit goes a long ways. In fact, point number one, what I want to make sure we know today is this. A little bit of poison goes a long ways. Is that right? If I were to say there's a little bit of poison in something, you go, man, I don't want to drink that, right? I don't want to drink something with a little bit of cyanide in it, right? A little bit of cyanide goes a long ways. A little poison goes a long ways. And it made me think about this story I heard about a mom. A mom had a son and he was turning 13. Anybody ever had a 13-year-old? And he was getting at that age where he's starting to try his roots a little bit, and it's like, hey, I'm 13 now. Mom, I can go see a PG-13 movie. And she's like, you can, right? I mean, like you're 13, and I need to start letting you make your own decisions. She said, but I need you to tell me what's going on in that movie, right? I'm gonna go see it with my friends. I don't have to have you there. I can buy my own ticket. And she's like, that's great. It's your birthday. You can go, but tell me what's in it. What is there anything wrong in the movie? He said, oh, Mom, there's just a little bit of wrong in the movie, right? I mean, it's just a little bit of bad language, right? It's just a little bit of nudity. It's just a little bit of sex scene. It's just a little bit of violence. And she said, that's fine. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll bake you some brownies. Anybody getting nervous yet? Okay. Anybody ate the brownies today? And so she baked him brownies for his birthday. That's pretty awesome. And just as he ate the brownies, she said, hey, by the way, I added an extra ingredient today. Just a little bit of dog poo in the brownies. Right? So I asked Marie, I said, to illustrate today, we have a dog named Storm. And I said, could you just add just a little bit of poop in the brownies? No, Marie wouldn't do that, okay? She said she made it with love, so there you go. So just don't get all freaked out by it. But that would change your whole mind, right? Somebody's almost getting sick right now going, you didn't do that, did you? I mean, right? But let me ask you this. Do you do that in your life? Is there a little bit of poison in your life, but you don't think much about it, right? The things that we watch, the things that we do we let them do it? The TV shows that we permit into our lives, right? They're choices. But it's just a little bit, right? Is it that bad? I'm not here to be prudish today. I get it. I mean, like in literature, and by the way, I do agree with this, that literature sometimes shares some really bad things. I don't agree with everybody that cuts everything bad out. If you read the Bible, there's some really bad stuff in there, but it has a good meaning, right? You read the Bible, and it would be censored by anybody that would say, hey, man, this would be rated, some of this stuff is rated R in the Bible. I mean, no lie. But it has a Christian worldview. It has a good meaning behind it. What I'm talking about is sometimes we watch things, and we go, man, is there a little bit of bad there, right? Things that I wouldn't normally permit into my life, the using of God's name in a different way, the using of certain language and acts and sexual acts and all kinds of things that we would say, hey, if anybody did that in my house, I would throw them out, but yet we let them in through our devices just a little bit, right? Is that how it works? So you don't think I'm holier than thou, let me share a personal story, okay? But I'll take it way back just because I got some current ones, but I'm not ready to share that kind of stuff. I'm not that vulnerable, okay? But I'll take it back to when my son was 3. Now he's 25 now, so that tells you it's been a while. And we were not in a good place in our lives at the time. Me and Marie were going through some really difficult times. And I remember taking him to preschool in the morning and stuff like that. But I was going to go fishing with him, so we were going to go to the Outer Banks And my brother was down there with his camper, and we were going to go fishing, and he was going to take us out on the beach on his truck and all that. And so on the way down there, Marie wasn't going on this trip. She was having some health problems and different things. And so I was just me and Wyatt, and my brother was already down there. So he's in the back seat in the car seat. And she gave me one of the kids, I think it was a cassette tape, but anyway, that tells you how long ago. Have you ever seen one of those kids' tapes? I don't know what they play now, but it was like kind of a Barney, Thomas the Tank Engine, Wiggles, I don't know, whatever it is, Teletubbies. It was horrible, okay? And there's all this wheels on the bus, and I just thought I was like, I'm not gonna make it. So we got halfway down there, and there's if you've ever been down to the Outer Banks, there's a place where the monster truck is. Have you ever seen that, where the Gravedigger is? And Wyatt liked monster trucks. Even at 3 years old, he loved monster trucks. And so I'm like, hey, Wyatt, would you want to hear some monster truck music? And so I decided, hey, there's a song by Poison called Talk Dirty to Me. And I was like, it's about a monster truck, right? And so he's like, oh, that's great, Dad. And so he's listening to that. And then I was like, there's a song by AC/DC called She Shook Me All Night Long. And I was like, hey, that's about a monster truck. It's talking about the truck shaking, and it's about a monster truck. And so I didn't think much of it because I wasn't in a great place in my life. And I had my preschool kid. I wasn't really thinking about it until one day we were taking him to school. And Marie's in the car, and we're getting ready to go, and so she's getting ready to put on his tape, and then he goes, hey, Dad, could you put on the monster truck music? And Marie's like, are you crazy? You let my 3-year-old listen to AC/DC? You get how little bit it is? A little bit of poison goes a long way. So, let me tell you something. As having a child that's 25, we made a lot of mistakes. You pass that on to them. Did you know? I share that vulnerably only because I go, hey, I'm not saying that all music is bad, and I still like some of it in Journey and different ones that are still good and positive messages. But some of that stuff I had to go back and look at, and I go, are you sure you're not passing on, right? Your culture. I get it. Oh, I like it. I like the way it sounds. I like the way it is, right? Just a little bit. A little bit of poison goes a long ways. I was thinking about that. If you're married, it doesn't work to be almost faithful, right? I'm 99.9% faithful. That doesn't work, does it? Right? If I told Marie that, next week you'd be looking for a new pastor, right? Not because of the moral failure. Marie's like, hey, I don't believe in divorce, but on the thou shalt not kill, I'm a little iffy on that. Okay, anyway, so you get the idea, right? A little bit of poison goes a long ways. That's point number one. Point number two, we'll look at the book of Romans. Now, this is Romans 12, verse 2. For those of you that read it, it's going to be a little bit different because we're going to read it in the Message, and it's a paraphrase. There's nothing wrong with a paraphrase. It means it's not a translation word for word. It actually adds and enhances our understanding, not adding to the Bible, but adding to our understanding. And you can go back and read it in whatever translation you like. But I just wanted to share this part with you because I just think it's worded so well. Romans chapter 12 and verse 2, it says this: don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God and you'll be changed from the inside out. The verse goes on to say this: readily recognize what he wants from you and quickly respond to it, unlike the culture around you, always dragging you down to its level of immaturity. God brings the best out of you and develops a well-formed maturity in you. I don't know that I have to explain that so much because it's so well worded to us. So just to summarize it, point number two. Before I go to point number two, let me ask you, what was point number one? You guys got it. I was wondering if you'd hesitate. I was like, that was so profound, and then nobody says anything. Point number two is this: just because everyone does it doesn't make it right, right? I just kind of go with the flow, right? Do you think of it that way? Do we just kind of do it because, hey, everybody else is doing it? Can I tell you something? If you want what everybody else has got, keep doing what everybody else is doing. God didn't call us just to fit in. He called us to stand out. Not to be weird. I get it. There's a lot of Christians that just want to be weird for just the sake of being weird. It's not good. But what I'm talking about is when we know, hey, this isn't right, but the majority of people do it, right? There's a great story in the book of Numbers. In fact, we'll probably talk a little bit about it when we do the series on Moses. In the book of Numbers, it talks about when the children of Israel had left Egypt and now they were going to go into the promised land. They sent in spies to spy out the land, but only 2 of the spies believed God that he could overcome the enemies. They said, no, it's everything God said, but the rest of them stirred up the people. And can I tell you something? Nobody but the 2 spies got to go in. Be careful that you don't think democracy is always a good thing. A republic democracy is a good thing. Even our founding fathers understood that we don't have a true democracy, because true democracy means, hey, if we don't like what the majority says, we'll kill off the rest, right? And so we're a country of laws. We're a country of principles, or we should be. We were, right? And we should even go back to that, to be careful. Be careful that you don't just follow the flow. That if you don't want what everybody else has got, be careful, right? You want to be in debt. The majority of people are in debt, and yet we use debt, right? To buy things that impress people that we don't even care about and things we don't even need, right? But everybody does it, right? Everybody has to buy this, and everybody has to do this, and everybody has to have this level of debt. But yet there are other ways to do it. And I think that's what God is trying to show us. Can I give a little bit of a warning? Just because Hollywood says it doesn't make it right. Right? Just because a cartoon character says it doesn't make it right either. Right? Just a thought. But can I challenge us as Christians, because I do know the pendulum goes both ways, that it's not just what we do, it's how we do it. Because I see a trend that goes like this, is that we get so worked up by some of the other influences in our lives. That some people wake up in the morning and the first thing they do is get a cup of coffee and watch the news. And it sets the course of their day. And you know what I see? I see so many angry Christians. And we have a right to be angry, right? There's a righteous anger. But what I'm talking about, anger that gets inside. And it directs your life, fear and anger and propaganda and politics. Just be careful. That in the doing it, by the way, Satan wins either way, right? Whether he has you on the one side or the other, just be careful. Number 2, just because everyone does it doesn't make it right. The third point is this. We're going to take a look at 1 Corinthians again. There's a lot of great stuff in 1 Corinthians. If you've never read 1 Corinthians, I would highly recommend it. It's written to a church that's really, really messed up. And it applies more than we know. 1 Corinthians 6, verse 12. I have the right to do anything, you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything. You see, the Apostle Paul is making the point to saying we are free in Christ. We're not under the old law. This was a Gentile church, not a Jewish church, so they didn't follow all the Gentile customs. And he was saying, no, God is not calling us back to be under the law. Jesus came to set us free. But he's saying some of you guys are using your freedom in a way that's not beneficial to you. Oh, you have the right, but it's not helping you. You see, let me put it in terms that maybe we can understand. Maybe you've done this. We say something like this. I know that that's not the right thing to do. I know what the Bible says, but, and if you're saying that, can I tell you something? Whatever else you're going to say is not good. It's going to lead you down a path of destruction you can't be. But you're going to go, just like we talked about, it's just a little bit, right? Can I tell you, a little bit goes a long ways. Be careful with that. That God's not in it. God's not blessing your life when you do that. And some of us, we look at it like this. We look at it like, hey, you know what? What I'm going to do is this, is I'm going to go ahead and make the mistake, and then God will forgive me afterwards, right? Is that how it is? We have a license to sin. In fact, we have a day of the year that the religion speaks of, right? It's called Fat Tuesday. You know about that? Mardi Gras comes out of that. And you can go do whatever you want. You can go fill your cup tonight, and then on the other end, God will just forgive me tomorrow. Is that how this thing works? This is the deal we made with God, right? I'm not cheapening, but I'm not saying that Jesus can't forgive all sins. What I'm saying is you have the right, but is it beneficial? Is it right? Is it helping your life? It's not about your salvation as much as it is about being right with God. Maybe you don't understand what this whole thing is all about. Can I tell you how the book of Proverbs says it? It says, it's a highway to the grave. You know, AC/DC had another song. It's called The Highway to Hell. You ever heard of it? It's a highway. It's not a little path. It's a highway where everybody's doing it. Just because everybody's doing it, right, doesn't make it right. And can I give you point number 3? Point number 3 is this: just because I could doesn't mean I should. Just because I could do it doesn't mean I should do it. I'll put it in terms that convict me. Just because it's funny doesn't make it right. Because some of us think that, right? That well, it's funny, so it kind of erases all the bad stuff that was there. And then we project that and we go, yeah, but it was funny. And we just kind of laugh it off and we think that that's not a big deal, but it has influence in your life. I was counting the other day with things that we think are funny, yet how many times did they use God's name in a profane way? How many times did they use a word that we would never use here? If I used it for emphasis, you would be like, kick me out of the church, right? If I said the F word here, but yet I counted in one movie that I really thought was funny, they used it every minute. Once a minute. We're so desensitized. Do you get it? Maybe you know the movie, I don't know. And it's funny, right? Be careful. Be careful. Just because you should, just because you could, doesn't mean you should. Before we wrap this thing up, I want to just give one warning, I guess I could say, one caveat. And I'm walking kind of a fine line here today. On the one hand, I think there's some people that maybe you're feeling convicted, maybe much like I am. Because I live in this culture too, and I want to have a good time too, and I think that's important that we do. And we do have freedom in Jesus, and we're not here today to beat you down or put extra weight on you, only to say pay attention to what has your attention. That's important. But on the other side of the pendulum is a person that might be going, you know what? I've been waiting for a message like this. Get them, right? And if that's you, I have a word for you too, because when the pendulum swings the other way, and sometimes it can happen, sometimes it's well-intentioned, but you'd be surprised at where it goes from here. That all of a sudden it's, hey, I'm going to be more legalistic. Can I ask you a question? Could you make sure that before you go get them, right, you check your motives? Why? Right? Especially the parent, be careful. Right? That we don't end up putting more restrictions. So on the one hand, we go, hey, I need to have some convictions and get these bad influences out. On the other hand, we go, hey, we limit freedom in other people's lives. We start to become a list maker, right? We start to make more rules than God made. Can I ask you to learn from the Pharisees? Did Jesus talk to openly? And in fact, when you read the New Testament, they were too good for Jesus. And can I tell you, when we go that route, the self-righteous route, when we start judging other people's lives and we start taking all the fun out and we go, hey, God said you can't wear pants, and God said you can't do this, and God said you can't go to anything, and God said you can never go to any type of entertainment, you can't have fun, you got to wear culottes. Sorry. Who came up with that, right? Sorry. Sorry. If you want to wear them, you can, right? But it's whatever. You get the idea? And you limit the freedom and the joy, and you suck all the joy out. And can I tell you what happens is if you don't have any filters and you have nothing, and you let all the bad into your life and your kid's life, you will rue the day that you did that, and it will destroy you. But can I tell you, if you go to the other extreme, the self-righteous, add more laws, Satan wins both ways. You'll suck all the joy out. Don't do that. Let me give you a verse that you can hang on to that maybe will help direct you as it's directing me. Before I go there, I just want to say, there's a disease in the body that it'll attack all your bad cells and kill them. Did you know? It also kills all the good ones too. Be careful, right? 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, here's a good one to hold on to. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 21, but test them all. He's talking about the influences in our lives. But test them all and hold to what is good. Reject every kind of evil. That's the point of today's message, right? If you're about to embark on making this change in your life, because I've tried and I'm trying, I'm striving, it isn't going to be easy. There's something sweet on the other end that you like. That's why you're influenced by it. But pay attention. You see, it's got a hook, right? It's got some poo in the brownies. We'll just leave that there, right? It's got a little bit of poison. It's killing you. Pay attention to what has your attention. You got to reject it. But can I tell you something? Don't just let that suck all the joy out of your life. What you want to do is you want to replace it with something else that is good, right? Something else that really does bring real joy. Don't just take everything away from your life and your kids' life and your family life and just go, hey, it's just about all these rules. That's why a lot of people just hate Christianity, because they don't realize what it's about. They think it's about guilt and being led by guilt. But Paul had it right. We have freedom in Jesus Christ. Freedom from the bondage of sin, but freedom from the self-righteousness that goes, I just have to feel guilty all the time, and then guilt rules my life. That's not what God wants. He wants you to hold on to what is good, replace it with the good things, and you'll be surprised. You won't miss the bad. You'll be glad you got it out of your life. For some of us, we understand how toxic it can be. We'll talk more about that next week. Replace it. Make it fun. Can I tell you that? Okay. Here's how I want to end today. 3 questions to ask yourself about the influences in your life. This might help guide you, just like I'm using these questions in my life. Number 1, am I being entertained by sin? Maybe it's not. If it's not, don't feel bad about it. Just because somebody else says it doesn't mean that it's wrong. But is it sin? If it is, then call it for what it is. Even if it's funny, right? It's funny, but it's sin. Don't do it. Right? Change that up. Number 2, is this pleasing to God? If you're a follower of Jesus, if you're not one, you're welcome in on this dialogue. Maybe by the end, you're going to be one. And we'll invite you into that. We'll pray in a minute, and you can have them into your life. But if you are a follower of Jesus, you should be asking that question over everything that you do. Not just, is it right or wrong, but is it pleasing to God? And number 3, does this lure me away from Jesus? Next week, we're going to talk about our habits. Bad habits that we've picked up and how to overcome them. Some of our addictions, how do we get rid of that? But for today, can we pray together about the influences in our life? And maybe, just maybe, God would open the eyes of our heart to pay attention to what has our attention. Can we stand for prayer? Father God, we come before you today. Lord, it's hard to deliver a message like this only because, Lord, I have to apply it to myself too. And I struggle in these areas. And if people know me, then God, they would know I've made some mistakes, just like everybody else. God, I know how this message could be taken, but I pray, Lord, you penetrate the heart today, that somebody doesn't take it like, okay, that's just somebody just trying to kill all the fun in life. That's not what you want. That's not what I'm desiring, and I know it's not what you want, Lord. But I do pray in a society that continues to deteriorate and more, and some of us notice it, I pray that you help guard our hearts and our minds. Help us to identify the things that are really destructive. The things that maybe just have a little bit of poison. Maybe it didn't seem like it before, but now it's little and we're desensitized to it, and we're passing it on to our children. Poison. Because Satan wants to steal, kill, and destroy us. But Lord, you came to give us life. So God, help us to understand what it is. If they need help, Lord, help them to know we're not here today to just judge it, but to say, hey, how can we do this together and become closer to you? And through the power of your Holy Spirit, you can help deliver us from anything, Lord. I believe that. So God, help us to pay attention to our influences. Help us to start to change them and not just kick out all the things that are fun, but Lord, change them to positive things that bring positive influence and positive in our lives and the lives around us. And Lord, I believe in that way your Spirit will operate in a way that we can't believe. Lord, I pray for the one that maybe is just devastated by all the different influences and the anxieties and all the things that are just dragging them down. I pray, Lord, the beacon of light today is this, that your one and only Son came and died for us and rose from the dead, no matter where they are and what they've done. If they reach out to you, you will help restore a relationship with God and put them back on a different path. God, I pray you receive all the honor and glory and praise in Jesus' name. Amen. Guys, if you need prayer, we'll be here after the service. For everybody else, God bless you. Have a great week.